much for coming to our ADP Sage Payroll powered by ADP webinar. And we do have the mics muted for the beginning of the presentation, and then as that goes through, if you do have any questions, there's going to be the area within the comments section to write questions in that we can then address. Also at the end, if you do have any questions, then we can open up mics there. But I'm going to go ahead and kick this off to Kevin and let him take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Kevin Quain with ADP here in partnership with ETHOSystems. So excited to kind of go through this today. Denise, if you mind jumping to the next slide. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to talk through today. So I want to give an introduction to Sage Payroll powered by ADP. If you've used us in the past, if you haven't, ADP that is, keep an open mind because there are a lot of changes specifically in the construction vertical that we're going to hit on. So that parlays in the second piece of the agenda. And then the third, a lot of misconceptions or maybe bad information of what in-house payroll versus a SaaS model looks like. That's software as a service. High-level overview of the product. So it is a lot more than just payroll. We'll dive into that. And then my colleague and counterpart on today's show is Denise, who will drive us through the actual tool, and we'll see what that looks like from a production environment. And then we'll close out with Q&A, but as Mike stated, if you have questions throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat there. So I always like to start with this. Okay, Kevin, that's great. Like what is actually powering Sage Payroll? So it is our mid-market solution, which is called Workforce Now. We have about 90,000 total clients on Workforce Now, 50 in the US, another 40,000 in Canada. So we are the market leader in that space. And as you see this presentation, like there's a couple of things I want to highlight, but one of them is that it is truly one system of record for payroll, time, and HR, and that our construction module of this was launched in 2023. So in collaboration with Sage and partners like Ethos, with this solution, construction is actually our #1 vertical. So it's been taken off for a lot of the reasons why I think you all are on today. You're on a legacy platform. I'm looking at options for payroll and possibly going into the cloud for accounting and financial management software. So that's kind of an overview of what is powering the product here. And then kind of going into why did we even get into this space? It feels like 5 years ago, there was really no true solution, maybe even 4 years ago, for payroll complexities within the construction industry. And here at its core is really the main reason. Silos of systems, right? So the ERP wouldn't connect to financial or rather payroll and HR systems. So people just kept it all in-house and then they left it alone, right? With Sage 300 CRE today, accounting and payroll is in there, and it was never really moved to an HCM system because they were so disjointed. You couldn't handle the things of the job costing, the payroll modules, having those communicating to different HR tools, and it was a lot of seams and silos of technology and also manual management in Excel. So with that, we made an acquisition of a company, Denise, you can jump to the next one, in 2021, and we finally got that embedded within Workforce Now, again, which is powering Sage Payroll, in 2023. And it kind of boils down into really 3 sectors of what this means to you, the customers, and one is the product, right? So all of the complexities of that comes with government jobs, right? The prevailing wages, the union, the certified payroll, like all of those deliverables are now embedded within the technology. So you don't need to leave to go to a third party. The tables, the logic are all embedded within the one system of record, which Denise will walk us through in a minute. So that's the product portion of it, which is great. But then the other aspect is like ADP was always seen, and really, quite frankly, we were, as a generalist for 75 years. We've done payroll for all verticals. With this acquisition, we put a lot of money and resources into our service teams to specialize in the construction vertical. So with that, we have our CCOE, or Construction Center of Excellence, which is the implementation team and the service team that are all they do is work on our construction clients. So the methodology of implementation really starts with the integration with the ERP and job costing, and then we work back from that. And then once you're in the service model, it's not a 1-800 model. You have a dedicated account manager, and the client to account manager is roughly 1 to 28. So one account manager will manage 28 accounts. And then thirdly, it's really standing up our partnerships like with Ethos that we have here today. So it's the implementation model is aligned, the service model is aligned, the go-to-market strategy is aligned. So that's what's really helping a lot of 300 CRE clients move into the cloud. So if you were fit for everyone, you'd be a fit for no one. So there are some prerequisites of this. So on the payroll side, it is a PEPM model, which I'll get into pricing in a minute. But because of that, there are minimums of employee counts to move into this. So it's a small and medium go-to-market strategy, but really 40 employees is the floor. And the ceiling that we can go up to, I mean, we just brought on a group that had 3,000 employees last month, but it's generally 40 employees up to 1,000 is really the sweet spot. As I mentioned, construction is our #1 vertical. We can take on new and existing Intact and or 300 CRE customers, and this is a US and Canadian product. Some knockouts for this, right? So cannabis companies, I don't think it's really too applicable here. Groups with less than 40 employees, if you do not have an FBIN already, or if you're already using ADP. If you are using ADP, we can bolt on a connector to help with the efficiencies with Intact and 300 CRE. Do one more click for me, Denise. So we have kind of a scale here, and I want to talk a little bit about the different levels of service. So I'm going to start on the far left and in the middle, because that's really the groups in our construction vertical are hitting and focusing on. But this may surprise most, but we do have an in-house payroll solution, which means you can have the payroll side, you can have all the HCM functionality. We just turn off the tax filing. So you are responsible for remitting the taxes. We partially prepare the 941s, and then we do prepare the W-2s. But the main thing is you're filing the taxes. So we always hear from clients that the one word of fear is losing control when moving to a model like this. So you can turn off the tax filing, which I'll get a little bit more into that. But this middle bucket here, this SaaS payroll, this is our most popular model. Again, you're still not losing control. You're just outsourcing the tax filing. So we still need payroll administration to process and run and manage the payroll. In the SaaS model, what you're outsourcing is the tax filing, which I'll talk about a little bit here next. So if you can jump to the next one, Denise. So this is what it looks like today from an administration and a tax and compliance aspect of it. Yes, there are more than this, but to keep it elementary and 10,000 foot level, this is really what it looks like. So the different color coding here is managed by the client. If you click one more, Denise, this is what it would look like in the in-house model, right? So that we have with Sage Payroll. So all of these tax and compliance aspects of it, notifying base federal, state legislative changes, payments of the federal, state, and local taxes, this can all be optional. So you can have this model where you're doing a lot from what you're similar today as far as really mainly a cash flow purpose of when you remit the tax. But if you click the next one, Denise, this is our most popular model, and this is just outsourcing the tax filing, right? So we, ADP, would assume responsibility for filing the federal, the state, the local taxes, fully preparing the quarterlies, the 941s, and the 940s at the end of the year, and then preparing the W-2s. So we do like to give options, specifically for groups that have been in-house for years, to give you a little bit more control and flexibility of how you want this module to be delivered to your org. So before we get into the actual production environment of the demonstration here, I kind of wanted to give just a high-level overview of what really our construction clients are working with. And if you think of this half circle here as the employee life cycle, right? So if you're looking to hire someone, that would be through an applicant tracking system. We have worker opportunity tax credits that we can do through that. Through onboarding, getting them taking their risk and safety trainings, that is all embedded within the tool. Tracking certifications, licenses, employee profiles, electronic onboarding. When open enrollment comes to do enrolling in new benefits, that is all in the same tool. Obviously, the payroll side, we can handle the job costing, of course, performance and compensation management. We lean heavy on analytics. So Denise is going to showcase some of that, of what that means for, exactly what that means for construction groups. Definitely a large component of time collection, mobile crew clocking, physical clocks, or via desktop can be aspects for collecting time. And then 401k and workers' comp integrations we have as well. So there's a lot to choose from. I will say, jump back once more, Denise. Pricing does start at $12 per employee per month for payroll only. So that kind of gives you a benchmark of the pricing on this. And I will say, like, on average, we have like 7 SKUs that people are continuously purchasing. So it's not just payroll that the bulk of our clients are getting. It's the onboarding, it's the time, it's the applicant tracking. So 7 SKUs are our average. There are a lot more than this, but these are our most popular. So to kind of give everyone like a budgetary aspect of this, $12 per employee per month is where it starts. So with that, I will throw it over to Denise to walk us through the tool. Denise, over to you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. So as Kevin mentioned, Workforce Now, in conjunction with your Sage Intacct or your Sage 300 CRE, really is a one-stop from beginning to end, hire to retire. The great thing with that is, it's one system for that employee, no matter what they're logging in to do. But it's also a great one-stop shop for if that person is an employee of the company only from just a regular employee, or if they're more of like an executive or a practitioner, it's also one login. So you're not logging in with multiple different users, depending on the type of work that you're doing at that specific time. Really what's going to change is some of the functionality within the tool. Things that they would have access to will vary depending on if they're looking at it for their own information versus somebody else. That gives you the different viewpoints. The first one that I really want to hone in though on here is the analytics that Kevin had just mentioned. So, ADP being a very big payroll vendor, we pay 1 in 6 Americans. That gives us a lot of data that we have been able to go ahead and anonymize. So now not only are you looking at your own internal data from, payroll to time to, benefits, but now you're able to take a look at that and also benchmark yourself against other organizations similar to yours in many different avenues, similar in industry, in revenue size, in the type of pay that you're trying to do. Is it an hourly or a salaried employee? Are you looking at workers' compensation or workforce compensation, or are you looking at talent market? Trying to understand where is best for you to go ahead and go into next. From a company standpoint, are you looking to expand north, south, east, west, or right down the street? So this is just some of the different benchmark explorers that are available, again, allowing you to see how your company is doing up against others of similar size and industry to give you really that base level of, hey, this is how I should be doing, and giving you something to stack it up against. The one here that I want to show you today, and it really hits home a lot with construction, is, of course, compensation. You have unions, you have non-unions, you have, construction companies all over the place. Employees are going from one to the next, depending on what the job looks like. Or maybe you're looking at bidding on a new job someplace, and it's going to take you outside of your comfort zone and you might have to hire some new employees there in order to expand your business. what is that going to look like from a pricing perspective for you when it comes to their salary? Well, in here, I can select the type of person I'm looking to hire, so a foreman, and I can even put in the area that I'm looking to hire that person in. Today, we're just going to leave it kind of high level, but you can go state, city, you can even put in a zip code and get down to the metropolitan statistical area with this data. Then down here, you are able to see the actual job description. So again, making sure it matches what you expect and what the skills are that you're looking for with that individual. So that way you can really get a true understanding of what that compensation expectation is of those individuals. So we have our pays here by percentile. So you can see for a median, we have a cash compensation benchmarking here. It tells you how many clients worth of data we're looking at and how many employees worth of data we're looking at. Now you can see here, it also tells me when it was last refreshed. Now again, since this is ADP's data, the great thing is that we are able to refresh this data monthly for you. So it's not statistical data. It's not, you know, somebody putting in, I make 50,000 when I make 54,000. It's the actual true data that ADP reports to the employees, to the IRS. So you get that true monthly update. And then over here, some different compensation mixes. You know, what are you looking at? Are you looking at their base salary versus some overtime versus, you know, bonuses that are being expected? And what about from a hourly perspective? If they're not a salaried employee, what would they be expecting from an hourly perspective? Here's some additional charting information, but then down here, it's also going to give you additional information on what does the active workforce look like for this area. So again, going back to that expansion, if you are looking at expanding or you're looking at needing to hire in a specific area, this can really help you to understand, am I going to have enough of a pool to actually hire and fulfill the requirements I need to get that job done? Then you have, you know, how many new hires, time, how long does it take you to fill? You know, this is going to give you an idea of, okay, is this something I can stand up in a month, in 2 months? This will help you gauge that to say, okay, I need about a 3-month lead time to get them all in here. And then depending on what you need from a training perspective and all that stuff, kind of gives you an idea of how much lead time you're going to need. What does the growth look like in that area? Is it an up and coming area that you want to invest into? So a lot of great information as you, again, are trying to understand whether or not you want to take that leap and you want to go into that new area and if it makes financial sense for your organization. Then down here is just some additional demographic information as well as some age band. So again, a lot of great data just from a compensation perspective, not even getting into any of those other benchmarks. And then as I mentioned, it also incorporates your own personal data as an organization. So if I wanted to, I can go in here and I can say, okay, I want to see my overtime and how I'm doing compared to others in my industry. So by selecting benchmark, I can now not only see my own data, which is updated throughout the day, but now I can come up here at the top and I can say, okay, I want to see how I'm doing compared to others. Again, in your different organizational sizes, to make sure that I'm being competitive with where I am, or if I'm trying to set new KPIs, you know, am I being realistic in setting those expectations? Are these things that make sense for me for that area? And you'll be able to go ahead and get that information here. So again, a lot of great information. We're on a time crunch today, so just high level for today, but definitely can get more in depth with a one-on-one presentation. So, you know, what do we do from here? What happens after we go ahead? You know, you've decided you want to hire some individuals into the organization and you want to go ahead and get them started. What is that going to look like for you? You know, getting them into the system. Well, once you have entered that employee, you've gone ahead and you've hired them. Of course, the next step is getting them onboarded. You know, and that can be difficult, especially if you don't maybe have an HR office in that specific location. So we have electronic onboarding through Workforce Now as well. So with the electronic onboarding, this is something where once you've hired them, you can say, okay, this is the experience that I want this individual to have. So you can have a different experience if this is somebody who's salary versus an hourly and versus maybe a contractor, a 1099 worker. You can set up different experiences because you still need information from them, but the information may vary. This is all customizable, so you can provide a video, let them know a little bit more about your organization, some information about who their manager and teammates are going to be, profile information, allowing them to ensure that it's up to date. Maybe they put the application in 6 months ago, but here's really that big time-consuming spot. You know, getting them to complete things like their I-9 information. You know, the nice thing with this too is it's all wizard-driven. So it's going to walk them through step by step of completing the I-9 form. So no paper documents needed. It goes to the next person once they complete their section. Same thing with their tax withholdings. Based on their lived in and worked in locations, it's going to let them know what tax information we need. Again, wizard-driven to walk them through. They can upload their payment information for direct deposit, update some emergency contacts, and you can provide them with documentation that maybe they need to acknowledge, like your OSHA policies, your safety policies, things like that. But you can also ask them to upload documentation for you and make it required or optional. You know, a lot of times you have guys who are driving your own corporate vehicles. So you might want a driver's license, or you need documentation that they're certified to operate specific equipment. You can have those in here and require that they upload that documentation for you. Now, it makes it very easy for the employee because they can do this from a desktop, how I'm showing you today, or they can also go ahead and do this from a mobile device. So they can simply take a photo of that with that mobile and upload it directly into here. Once it's all done, everything comes back to your HR department, making it seamless. They can hit the boots running that very, very first day. Now, once they are hired, what happens next? Well, now they go ahead and they become an employee within the system. Within the system, you'll be able to have their personnel information, employment information, benefits, retirement, talent, and so on. The one I really want to highlight here is talent. So within this talent tab, you're able to see their licenses and certifications, their education, their training, all can be housed within here. You know, memberships, their skills, their languages, maybe they're bilingual. Having that information at the click of a button, you know, anybody in the org can access it with the proper permissions. And it also can have an expiration date. We all know there's a lot of certificates that you have to keep track of, making sure that they're updated, that you're staying in compliance. This is a huge time saver, no Excel spreadsheets that have to be, you know, filtered and sifted through every day or every week. This will actually generate a notification to whomever is decided on. And then you can also run reports. So if you wanted to do like a monthly audit for the following month, totally doable within a couple of minutes. The next thing that I want to highlight as on the topic of training is that maybe it's not a training that they've taken off-site. Maybe this is a training that you need the employee to take that they haven't yet done. You know, with construction comes a lot of safety courses, a lot of different courses that are required. You know, you have guys that are driving in trucks. You might have a truck of 6 guys. 1 guy is driving. What are those other 5 guys doing, or girls? Well, you can have them doing their courses. They could be on their phones, on their tablets, whatever the case is, completing courses that you need them to do from a OSHA, from a safety perspective. I'm just going to do a quick search here on just construction in general within the system. And you can see I have over 3,000 different construction specific courses. Everything from cranes in construction to aircraft construction. You know, you can get pretty specific in here. And these training courses are offered in different durations. So if you do have guys that only have an hour to focus on some trainings, you can narrow that down. If you have bilingual or, you know, workers who speak other languages and it's easier for them to read it and take that in that other language, a lot of these courses are available in different languages. You can see here, I have 16 different languages at this point. And then I have lots of different courses within those different areas. And then maybe you have a specific provider that you really like. You know, you think UL Solutions does a great job with their training. You can hone in on that again. So different ways to, you know, siphon through all of this information and get the trainings that you need out to your guys. You can also come in here and set up courses. So again, a yearly course listing that they have to get through. You can easily set that up. It goes out to all of the guys. Then on their home screen, they can log in. Not only will they see their time stuff to clock in and out if they're an hourly employee, but under their things to do, they'll be able to go ahead and take action and get those trainings done. Easy access, getting them right to where they need to be. So speaking of time, and you know, the big time button here on my main screen, you know, how else can your employees clock in and clock out? Again, we know they're on the road. They're not available always, you know, for a desktop. Well, they can use their mobile app if you want them to. They can go ahead and use a kiosk on a mobile device, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. And they can also do, if you do have a specific location and you want to have a, you know, a time punch someplace, you can go ahead and do that as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and log into a little iPad here that I have. So bear with me 1 second while I log us in here. All right. So here in a second, you're going to be able to see my little iPad up on the screen. Now, this is an iPad. Again, everything that we're doing today pretty much is available via our mobile app as well, which is a highly ranked mobile app for your employees. It's very user-friendly. As you can see, it can be on a phone, an Android, a tablet, but it can also be on an iPad like I'm showing you here today, and it will format accordingly to that different format. Here, I can go ahead and I can say I want to clock in as an individual employee. So this is just from an individual perspective, but maybe I am the crew leader and I want to say, okay, I want to go ahead and I want to punch in 5 of my guys. Well, instead of punching in those 5 guys individually, as that crew leader, I can come in here and say, okay, I need to punch these 5 guys in, and I don't want them just to be punched into their home location. I actually have them all working together to lay cement today, pour cement. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select what location we're working at today, maybe the cost center associated with it, the project they're working, whatever the case may be. You can do 1 to 13 different job categories in here, whatever you need to do. And they are done by parent-child hierarchy. So as your guys start to go through, maybe they select a specific location or department, it can narrow down what the next options are that they have available to select. Once they say, yep, this is where I want to go ahead and move those guys to, they simply select transfer. And it's going to move those 5 guys into that transfer. So what does this correlate to then? Well, this is all part of our essential time. So once that is finished and they've gone ahead and they've done that, if needed, you can go in and actually see what that looks like within their time. Maybe one of the guys were punched in incorrectly and it needs to be adjusted. Well, that guy can actually go in and update that information, or their supervisor can go in and update those labor charge fields that are being accounted for that day. So here I can say, okay, this is the department, but that's not accurate. I logged into a different department by mistake, so I need to go ahead and get that updated. Here's another view. So again, these can be a little bit different depending on how many different labor charge fields you're using, department, job, task, and so on. But here's another one. I have department and job. And here you see the number, but we all know sometimes they need to have that little description too. Easily here, they can see the actual number and the description. to make sure that they're selecting the right ones. Once everything looks good, of course, they would go ahead and approve their time from that time card. The manager can also approve their time cards. And then, of course, everything moves into payroll. So then from a payroll perspective, what does that look like? Well, if we go into our little construction dashboard here, which, by the way, when you do Workforce Now for construction and you're leveraging our construction information, you have this great dashboard that brings everything together. I'm going to get into this project setup here in a second when I go into the actual integration portion for Sage 300. But for right now, I just want to focus on payroll. So if I come in here and I access my construction dashboard for payroll here, you can see I've gone ahead, I've entered in my work information. All of this comes through to the workbook from everywhere else. You can double check everything, make sure it looks good. But in addition to that, we all know that you're not always going to use ADP's essential time. There are other options, of course, bringing in from other areas, third-party time. We can do import files. We can add additional time and rates in here and capture all of that. So there are different options for you. Once the information has been verified, though, everything does look good. At that point, you can go ahead and calculate the payroll. This is going to give you the option then as a client to go ahead and run some payroll reports before you do the final approval of payroll. You also at this point can do a variance, comparing two different payrolls side by side, making sure that everything looks good. Run any one of these different reports here again, and if it looks good, great, approve. If not, you can simply make changes. It undoes the calculation, and you can go back in and make any additional changes that you may need to do before approving the final payroll. So now, how does all of this fit into Sage 300 and Sage Intact? Well, that's a great question. So now we've gone ahead and we've done that. We have the 3 different integration points with Sage 300. Sage Intact is a little bit different. Again, we can cover that in a separate demonstration or conversation. But for the Sage 300 CRE, you're looking at people data, your payroll to ERP, so your general ledger, and then your project import of information. So we're going to start off with the send people information. So when you do hire somebody, or in this example that I'm going to walk through right now, I already have a person in here. This person is already in the system. They're listed in here as a carpenter. And as the carpenter, I'm recently said, what, they're not going to be a carpenter anymore. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make them a pipe fitter. So I've updated them in Workforce Now. So Workforce Now would be your system of record for employee data. So all employee data will initially be entered into here. After it's been entered into Workforce Now, it is an event-driven integration. So what that means is that as soon as you save it, it automatically is going to push it into Sage 300 for you. At that point, you can go in if you'd like to and double check, yep, this employee now is a pipe fitter instead of carpenter. So all of that information flows seamlessly over into the other system, no dual entry, saving you time and alleviating any room for error. The next thing, I'm going to skip over the GL and we're going to go into project import. So I mentioned to you that we would come back to that setup table section in the construction dashboard. And that's because it's going to highlight it here for us today. So you would start off in your Sage 300. That'll be your system of record or your system of entry for your project information. In here, you'll enter in the job, the description, some general information, and then go ahead and save it. Once that happens, you'll flip over into Workforce Now. Now, this is an integration that does get run through a batch overnight. So there's nothing that you have to worry about. It'll automatically be synced between the two systems. So you don't have to worry about pushing or pulling any data yourself. So you come in here the next morning, your project setup information will already be in here. At this point, all you're doing is saying, okay, That information should now be in my listing. I want to go ahead and make them officially available for my employees to select. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through, say, yep, here's my Sage 300 project 1, 2, 3. All of my data looks good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to commit it. Once you have that committed and everything looks good, you can go into the rest of that setup table and see, yep, I have that federal project data. It did pull over and it's here. Now it's available for, if it's for, for your employees to transfer to for coding, or if it's something where it needs to be available for reporting, whatever the case, or even to pay them, making sure that they're paying, we're paying the right wages for the right jobs. So again, all of it goes into those setup tables and then flows over. So alleviating that dual entry and those room for error. Now, as I mentioned, let's go back into that last part, and that's payroll to ERP. Again, very simple for you. All you are going to have to do is you would approve that, yes, that payroll is ready to go. And as soon as you finish approving and committing that payroll, the general ledger will actually sync over on its own. There's nothing additional for you to do. It's an automatic send of data. At that point, you just come over into your Sage 300, you go ahead and pull that up, and you'll be able to see those entries by batch over within your Sage 300. So I can see in here my general ledger and go in and pull that information. All right. And that takes us through, again, a high level of just some of the different features that are available with Workforce Now in conjunction with our partnership with Sage 300. So I'm going to go ahead now and turn it back over to Kevin.
Great, thank you, Denise. Appreciate the walkthrough there. Couple of questions that came in on my end. One, let's see, implementation related. How long is implementation? So on the payroll side, with construction, it's generally 16 to 20 weeks. There is a flat fee. It's not an hourly rate. But it's generally, I've seen on average, like between $2,500 and $5,000 is the one-time implementation fee. And that covers a lot, right? So we go back 7 years to pull all that data, to migrate that into the new system. But yeah, you're looking at 16 to 20 weeks. Looks like the same person asked, can we implement Sage Intacct and payroll at the same time? Yes, that's generally preferred and what most organizations do when they are looking for change. And if they're like coming from a Sage 300 CRE and looking to go into the cloud, they'll do both in one swoop. And we have templates and project plans with Ethos to do that migration strategy. So those were the only questions on my end that I see. Mike, if you don't see any other questions in your end, I will throw it over to you to close this out.
Well, and then there were actually two other, well, it was one question, it was one submission with two questions, and it was, how is Sage 300 CRE communicating with ADP, which Denise was able to cover that, via the API. And then also it was around the, are employees able to code time down to the job cost code category levels, which you showed via the time entry area. So I answered those, but it was also covered with the, with the demonstration.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, good deal. Well, everybody, I really appreciate, I appreciate everybody joining. I appreciate everybody joining today. And if you have any other further questions or something that pops up later, because it doesn't look like we have any others right now, if you would want to send those over to you can send them to sales@ETHOSystems. That's ETHOSYSTEMS.com. Sales@ETHOSystems. We will be happy to get those answered for you, and everyone will get a recording of this as well once it's processed and will be sent over. So thanks everybody, really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day.